All right, welcome to the Phillippe podcast. This is episode number 2. My name is Daniel Phillippe.
And my name's Santana Phillippe.
And we're both realtors working in the greater Toronto area. And today, our podcast episode is going to be geared towards rural living versus city living.
And we've been able to have this perspective ourselves as we've moved many times. So we can really give you guys a fresh perspective on our personal experiences and pros and cons that we've felt through the different moves.
Exactly. Now, most people wouldn't know this, but me and Santana, we actually started off in the same neighborhood.
Yep.
We were in I guess you would call it the Apple Blossom community.
The
Mearns community in Bowmanville. I lived on Ireland Street. Santana.
I lived on Sprucewood Street.
Never ran into each other, or if we did, we didn't know.
And they say that you grow up 5 kilometers from your soulmate. So I believe that that's what happened.
Yeah, I think something like maybe we caught each other's eye at the park or something. Or
when we're like 1
years old. I was coming out of gymnastics and I saw you and I was like,
yeah, we have this unsolved little thing. We don't know if we were in the same gymnastics class, but we did it the same age, the same place. So
could be unsolved mystery.
We're probably doing somersaults next to each other.
Yeah.
You never know.
Exactly. But yeah, so we'll start off with Santana. Just give me a quick pros and cons from growing up on Sprucewood.
I loved growing up on Sprucewood. I think my childhood would not have been the same if I didn't have my neighborhood friends. My street, we really were a clique.
Yeah. We
had street parties. Everyone who had a pool, everyone was over there. You meet up at halfway through the houses. It was a really good community. And I always wanted that for my kids because I just loved it so much. And our school was right there. I could walk home for lunch, all of that stuff.
Close to Max Milk at the time. Close
Frosty
to
John's.
Yeah.
That's a community favorite still.
Mm-hmm. Probably spend a lot of time just hanging out with your friends in the streets, biking around.
Yeah.
Things of that nature.
Yeah, and you had a bit of a different childhood.
Yeah, so I grew up on Ireland Street until I was 4 years old. And then my family moved to Orno, to a 29-acre farm at the time. And the catalyst for that move was essentially my parents were sick and tired of having neighbors specifically look inside their backyard. Because, as you know, in some subdivisions, it's a bit of a fishbowl effect where your backyard's here and you got neighbors just there's a row of neighbors behind you, and you could have at times 8 different neighbors that are able to look into your backyard. And there's a story that my mom likes to tell sometimes about one of her neighbors called the police saying that there was unattended children in the backyard of her home. And my mom said at the time that she was maybe doing the laundry or cooking food or something. But the police actually came to our door, and to make matters worse for my mom, this neighbor said that they had pictures of us. Mind you, it was probably my older brother, me, my younger sister, at the ages of 3, 4, and 6, right? Pretty small children. So that was that got my parents heated, so much so that they went from a 50 by 50 lot to 29-acre farm, right?
Why?
And then with that, no neighbors at all. So from 5 years old till whenever I was 20, I just grew up not knowing neighbors.
Yeah, and why is it in neighborhoods they always put the people who back onto you higher than you?
Yeah.
They always have their kitchen on the second floor with a walkout basement, and they're just staring right in.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Design flaw, it's horrible.
It's hard. It's density, right? It's hard when you're trying to cram as much houses and make as much dollars as you can as a developer, right? But yeah, so pushing into for me, from 5 to 20 years old, I grew up in Orno. Of course, had some friends in and around Orno that I could bike to and whatnot, but very different than the subdivision lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And growing up, I always wished to have that subdivision lifestyle because I was such a, I had friends and I was so involved with my friends at the time, and that was like a dream to me, just be able to like come home every day and have like everybody from my school just out and about. We could go like bike, go to Max Milk, and anytime I went to Bowmanville and did that with my friends, it was awesome. The freedom involved with it, so cool. And so you lived that lifestyle for the majority of your life, but then mom and dad made a move too.
Yep. My parents got sick of that fishbowl effect as well, and we made the move to Kendall. And that was so I moved there for a year in grade 4, so I got a little bit of like that like country lifestyle. I think that I would have liked it a lot more if I wasn't so city already. Like I came into like a country elementary school where they were going skiing once a week, and I had never skied in my life. Like, how embarrassing. I would just sit in the chalet drinking hot chocolate all day because I'm like, I don't want to embarrass myself. But then I ended up moving back to Bowmanville and got to live out the rest of till grade 6 in Bowmanville. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I know if you're listening, you're like, oh, well, Bowmanville's not really city. And that's true. It's not really city. But at the age of 20 years old, we both moved in together to your mom's new home in Oshawa.
Yeah.
And I mean, Oshawa's not Toronto, but like for us, like Orono, Kendall, like it was that was kind of moving to the city for us. And at first, we absolutely loved it because we had all of the restaurants, all the grocery store being like 2 minutes up the road.
Yeah. You could order Uber Eats.
Yeah.
That was like a main one. We loved that.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like very quickly, I remember most of our conversations were like, yeah, like we'll never move back to rural. It's just like, like the sticks or like, nah, like.
Yeah, we were super against it. We're like, we're never going back.
Yeah. And then from Oshawa, we lived in Oshawa for about like 4 or 5 years, and kind of bouncing around a couple of different houses. And we even had our son Romeo in Oshawa. And it was good. We we were walking, like while you were pregnant, I remember, you were getting your steps in around the community, and it was nice. Like we did love that.
We did love it, and we thought that we would love it even more when we had Romeo. But right after we had him, a very traumatic event happened.
Very traumatic.
Right down, 2 houses down? You want to tell them what happened?
Yeah, murder on Glen. So we moved into North Glen, the Glens in Oshawa, because it was supposed to be the nicest area, it's safe, older community, and we felt like, okay, this is a good place to have, to bring our son into the world. And it was a Saturday, can't tell you what month or day, but it was a Saturday. I was actually out on a listing appointment, and Santana heard some gunshots. And next thing you know, after those gunshots, police came to the door, asked her if she heard anything. She did, she did this and that. She looks outside, yellow tape everywhere. And to make a long story short, there was a tenant dispute 3 doors down, 2 or 3 doors down. And he ended up killing 2 people in the middle of the day with a gun. And it was pretty traumatic. I mean, it really shocked the community. It's like, no one could have anticipated something like that happening.
Yeah, especially in that area and the neighborhood that we were in. Like, that wasn't normal. And I think it really was a wake-up call for us.
Yeah.
Of like, we do want to go back to our roots and go more rural and have Romeo grow up the way mainly you grew up, but I guess Bowmanville too, like it's still not as big as Oshawa, and we kind of had to put Romeo's needs first when we were thinking about where we wanted him to be raised.
Yeah, it's scary, right? Like middle of the day, like who's to say? Yeah, basically there's 2 murder locations on the street, and the murderer had driven past our house. So you start thinking like, what if Santana and Romeo were out for a walk, as they did multiple times a day at that period in our life? And like, after that, like, do you feel comfortable with your son riding his bike around that community? Like, you don't really know your neighbors, right? So yeah, like, from that pain point that drove us to move back to Orono, and we've been there for what?
Couple months
now, and it's been amazing. So all those, all that shit talking we were doing when we were 20 years old about the world, it's now completely flipped, and we're like, man, like, I can't imagine anything other than this life.
So how do you, now that we are in Orono, how do you find your work-life balance with, working mainly in Oshawa and Whitby, but you're a bit further out now?
I think when we moved back to Orono, I was expecting those, that 15-minute commute to the grocery store, or that 25-minute commute to work to be like I just dread it. But I find like it's not too bad. Like,
So another question for you. How far would you commute to stay in rural? Would you drive to Toronto and still live in Orono?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a complicated answer for that. It depends where my work is, right? If I had to drive into Toronto, I feel I might be at the limit for maximum distance in Orono, which is like on the edge of Durham. But let's say, my work is in Whitby, which it is, like our office. I would say probably an hour away.
Yeah, so as long as you're not going like downtown, you would drive up to an hour to stay rural.
I'd probably like just before Peterborough, or maybe Cobourg. Cobourg, Peterborough, like just kind of those edges.
Yeah.
Inner edges of that, like that would probably be my distance, because I do hate the commute, right? And we're just the nature of our work, like we're driving around so much already. So
yeah, I feel like I thought Orono to Whitby alone was going to be like tough, but it literally feels like this.
Yeah.
Like when I drive to work to Whitby, it feels like nothing.
Yeah.
So I definitely would take a bit more of a commute to go a bit more rural. And honestly, a lot of the time with people's budget right now, you're having to commute a bit farther.
Yeah.
So going to that country life and maybe getting a house that you love more, with not as many neighbors, with bigger yards, like I think it's 100% worth it if you're willing to.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, we have some questions here. I think I'll just do a little rapid fire for you. If you could only pick one thing that you love about rural living, what would it be?
Ooh. Well, right now, because I have Romeo, I love that I can just like go out in my backyard and it just be like nature's everywhere. It's like anywhere you look, there's trees and grass, and it feels so private. It feels like I'm in a park, but I'm in my own home.
Yeah. All right. Do you think you'd get bored living country long term?
No.
No.
You think so, but there's just so much more to do, like on your own property. Like go for a walk, or we have the Crown lands right by us. Like that's a big plus. Like I don't think I'd ever get bored.
Okay. And what's your like biggest con with the city?
My biggest con would just be probably like your backyard space again. Like that's what I love so much about the rural is like, I don't know, the backyard is just so tiny and your neighbors are looking in and there's just too many people. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you an interesting question and I'm looking for like an interesting answer, okay? So, would you ever invest in a rural rental property, or is that too risky?
I don't think personally I would.
Okay.
I think that I would want somewhere where more people are looking to rent. Like how many people are realistically looking to rent in a place like Orono? There's nothing really around that would bring those renters in. So I would ideally go more Oshawa.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
No, I don't think I'm afraid of the rural rental potential or the rural rental properties. I think that you just have to just the same with city properties, you really have to break down your numbers and make it make sense. Because as you push farther out rurally, your prices are going to come down, which is going to make your margins better, and I mean, a lot of times you have a better chance of getting positive cash flow outside of the city, just because of the price of homes in the city. So no, I'm not opposed to it. I think that you just have to budget for more property maintenance, because again, we're now dealing with wells, we're dealing with septic, sometimes larger lots. And because of rural properties, a lot of times it's harder to get more dwellings on one property. So when you're in an area like Whitby, there's a lot more multiplexes, multifamily homes. But when you get into the rural areas, based on the zoning, you can only put 2, sometimes 3 units on a dwelling, just simply based on the zoning. All right. So that's my complicated answer.
Who, like, for first-time home buyers, where would you suggest they look, rural or city?
I mean, it's so subjective to what their needs and wants are. You know, if they have a car or not. I mean, if they don't have a car, it's pretty easy to, answer that question.
Say their budget is like $600,000. They have a car. They work in Pickering.
They have a car, they work in Pickering.
What could they get in a rural versus what could they get in like a city?
So there's two opinions I give you. My professional opinion, really quickly, is you have to get to know the client and understand what they value. Do they care for a commute? Do they want more space, or do they want to be closer to restaurants? Do they want to be closer to their friends, right? Like, you got to kind of realize what every client wants, because every client's gonna be very different, right? And that's my professional opinion. My personal opinion is I'm going rural all day. Yeah. All day, because what 600,000 gets you in Pickering is, I mean, a box in the sky, right? And high maintenance fees. What 600,000 gets you in, let's say, like Millbrook, fully detached home, maybe a workshop, maybe like a big lawn to entertain your friends, you get a lot. The catalyst is just the commute and maybe some of the amenities nearby, right? My lifestyle at this given point, I'm okay driving 20 minutes to get some groceries, to have some yard space, to have people entertain, not feel, congested inside of my home. So.
Yeah, agreed. And you're working with a couple of first-time home buyers. This year you've worked with quite a lot.
Yeah.
Where do you find they're going for? Like, what are you finding like their top priorities are?
Yeah, so a lot of first-time home buyers, the dream is to have a little bit of land, right? And I think rural properties in general, ever since COVID, when everyone was ordered to stay home, rural properties have become immensely more popular. And it seems like everybody and their brother are prioritizing some land value, some space, rather than being close to restaurants that during COVID were closed. So I think that the pandemic's completely shifted buyers' priorities, and whether you're a first-time home buyer or an upsizer or an end user, everybody's looking for a little bit of land right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like I see that a lot too.
Yeah.
Like, I know you mentioned Millbrook being, you can get something a little bit bigger. What are some other towns or around here that you could get something like that?
Okay, so like the gems, the towns that are gems are the ones that people aren't super familiar with. So areas like Bewdley, Pontypool, Omimi, Mariposa, these little towns that many people from the city don't even know the names of, like know where to look for, have some amazing prices. And they're not, the actual town isn't built up like a Millbrook or a Port Hope or a Newcastle, but you're a 10-minute drive to these like I don't even call it city centers, but like town centers, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I don't want to steer people away of thinking that we hate Oshawa, Whitby, Pickering. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So maybe let's give them some like towns of what we think is a good buy.
Some towns?
Or cities.
Some cities?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're looking from an investment standpoint, I think any major city in the Durham region is still very undervalued compared to the rest of the GTA. So everything from Pickering, Ajax, Whitby, some parts of Oshawa, Bowmanville, Newcastle, great buys. Mm-hmm. I think that over the next 5 years, based on simple supply and demand, with the amount of people coming into the area and with the lack of homes that are being built, you're gonna see a price increase. And I think from an investor standpoint, and an exit strategy standpoint, any major city in the Durham region is a good buy.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think we definitely have a lot of personal experience and professional experience working all over the Durham region and surrounding areas. So if you are trying to make your pros and cons list, trying to figure out where you want to live, feel free to always send us a message, and we'd love to help you out and figure out what's going to be the right fit for you.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just wrapping up the video, I think we're both leaning towards like a rural home versus the city home.
But again, that's just personal opinion.
That's personal opinion. And if you're someone who's thinking of, selling in the city and finding some rural properties outside of the GTA, give us a call. We can walk you through pros and cons and help you find your gem.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to episode number 2.
We'll see you next week for episode number 3.
Stay tuned.